Today, I'm really excited for our podcast. We're going to talk about women's retail. We're going to talk about the challenges facing retail today. And we're going to talk about, should I be online? Shouldn't I be online? How am I going to overcome these challenges in 2020? My guest today is Margo Kopman with Project Retail. Project Retail is a boutique consulting firm focused on independent retail. Margo, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your journey and how you got to, be this retail guru with Project Retail.
So I started my journey in early 2000 when I was a young, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed woman right out of college wanting to open a retail store. And fast forward about 4 years into it, I couldn't figure out why I wasn't making any money. And so I wound up finding someone that could help me with the science part of retail. And it changed my life pretty much overnight. So as I was going through the process, what I realized was wow, that there is so much to this. It's not expensive, and you no longer feel alone. And I decided to sell my store so I could focus on consulting and helping other store owners like myself live their dream.
And so your transition from retail to that retail coach world that you're in today came from where? You were tired in retail, or you felt like you'd be, better served looking after retailers?
I feel like what really happened was an aha moment of realizing that my strength and really my future was in the consulting. I wasn't necessarily tired of retail. If I had, to do it all over again, and if I could have, I would have probably tried to do both, which I did in the beginning, but, it's really hard to do two things and really well.
Yeah.
So I really realized, what my future was going to look like wasn't necessarily owning the retail store and operating it on a daily basis. It was coaching other retailers to do just that.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about Project Retail. Tell us the who, the what, the where, the why.
So Project Retail was created, about 8 years ago. I've been consulting for almost 12. And what I realized was there was a need for support and coaching for other consultants. And so as I was building my consulting practice with other retailers, I was being approached by other people that were looking to sort of shift their careers and wanting to get into the consulting business. So I thought, there was an opportunity possibly to, while growing consulting retailers, we could also, really actually coach and consult other consultants on, how to be great at what they do. My why, which, as you know, Dan, is a big question mark and something you and I talk about on a regular basis. And I kept looking at the sheet and I was like, am I going to answer this wrong? My ultimate goal is really just to give back. So many entrepreneurs live in their own little bubble. Same thing, whether you're a retail store owner or you are a consultant / coach. And, the goal is that we're all trying to build something, live our dreams. And it can be lonely and isolating, but it's really an amazing, gig. I don't like to call it a job because I don't really feel that it is. So the goal is basically to, help people really realize what they can do for themselves, for their business, for their communities. And I would like to do the same for them.
So if I'm hearing you right, your why is almost to be that ally for that lonely retailer today, to help them through their challenges. Was that accurate?
Yes,
Is it
sir.
close? Yeah, yeah, right on, right on. So tell me about your clientele. What kind of clients do you work with?
So I live in a world pretty much of women's retail, anywhere from fast fashion to middle of the road contemporary, all the way up to high end designer. It's really where it's my most favorite. I mean, when I opened my store, the goal was to be sort of that place where women loved to shop because it felt like they were at their best friend's house. So I kind of live in that world. Um, I think we can as coaches, we can coach any retail, big or small, that's independent. But my sweet spot really is the women's contemporary world of retail.
Okay, and so the where, I mean, you're in LA, but that's not really where your client base is.
Nope. My clients are all over. Most of my business is on the East Coast, with some trickling in Middle America, but I have very few clients on the West Coast. I moved here for the sunshine and palm trees.
Sunshine and palm trees.
I'm not moving to Edmonton. Let's put it that way.
You don't really want to be in Edmonton today. I'm not sure you want to be anywhere in, the middle part of the continent today. It seems like everybody got a bit of snow, and it's a tad on the chilly side. So I'd kind of like to
Yeah.
be an LA girl today myself.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about women's retail. What's changing in women's retail today from, that 12 or 10 or 12 years ago when you were a retailer? What's changing?
Well, certainly technology. As we all know, we have the World Wide Web. I think the biggest change today is creating the experience, the in-store experience that essentially works with the technology, aka their website and their branding. But it's really, really mostly about keeping up with an experience in store that is changing and is really touchy-feely and developed to make these customers, her, comfortable, and, wanting to be there, not only just to necessarily shop, but to say hello to a friend that may very well be their, salesperson. It's really about that experience. So if we're not keeping up with that, we can really no longer expect the spaghetti method to work, where you just buy a bunch of stuff and you throw it on the walls and, oh, they're going to come shop.
The spaghetti method, I don't know if I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Toss it on the wall
Yeah.
and see what sticks.
Yeah. Just toss it up there. Oh, yeah, that's cute. That's cute. I think we could sell that. That sounds like a good idea.
Okay, so you talked about technology, but then we really went to in-store. So is technology in your world about being on the interweb, which I kind of feel like it's here to stay for a while, at least anyways? You think that's about them being online, or is it, in sort of industry speak, is that omni-channel, or is it, the online experience, does it need to mirror the in-store experience?
I love that word, omni-channel. It was actually introduced to me by a client that has 10 stores, that when we first started working together had 4 stores, and he's a millennial, and he kept saying to me, omni-channel, omni-channel, omni-channel. And so that's really the perfect word. I believe that it's really more about the in-store experience, having the website, your Instagram, all your social things really mirroring what that experience is. Because what I find is that, most women that are shopping, they aren't shopping online meaning clicking the cart and checking out.
Right.
They're going to shop to see what it looks like, who are the stylists, what are the brands they're carrying, and all of those things, so they can kind of get an idea of what it's going to feel like once they're inside.
Okay.
Because
so
again, it all goes back to that feeling.
Right. Okay. So I just want to make sure that, you and I aren't going to disagree on this. Do women's contemporary retailers, do these retailers that you work with, do they need to have e-commerce strategies?
If they have a lot of money, by all means.
How many of these independent women's retailers do you know that have a lot of money, that are making a lot of money? I mean,
yeah, good question. I mean, I think, it depends on the size. It also depends on what their expenses are. If
Right.
they've got low expenses, they obviously can spend a little money on trying to go online. I would say out of the 30 stores that I work with, I'd say 3 of them actually have well-working and breaking even e-commerce businesses. And breaking even, they are not
Right.
not making, they're not swimming in the cash from that.
From the online business.
Yeah.
Right.
But in regards to the omni-channel, one of my
just a
clients-
minute. What does omni-channel actually mean?
Well, that's a great question. So you've got your e-commerce customer, you've got your brick and mortar customer, and then you've got an omni-channel customer, which means they float between the two.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, one of my clients, the one that has the 10 stores, they have built a website business that essentially, and have worked very, very, very hard at it over the last, 6 or 7 years. And essentially now what we're measuring is what the lifetime value is of the omni-channel customer, the e-commerce customer separately, and the brick and mortar customer separately. The omni-channel customer has a lifetime value that's almost double from the e-commerce as, just a standalone
Right.
customer that only shop online, and, the brick and mortar that only shops in the brick and mortar. So that was very eye-opening to me, where, once you can implement and put those types of things together, albeit it costs, you have to invest in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That omni-channel experience is actually very, very, very powerful. I believe that it can come in different ways when you don't have a lot of money, right, to invest in it. So, how do you bridge the gap between what your social media, says and is doing with your brick and mortar actual experience, and then combining that sort of omni-channel while you're in store, right? Whether
Right.
it's, you can check out on an iPad, or, just random technology things to make the shopping, and I'm air quoting, easier.
I gotcha. Okay, so do you feel like there's one social media channel that has more success for your retailers, than another?
I do think that Instagram is still very powerful. I understand that, because Instagram is obviously owned by Facebook, when you can actually sell from Instagram, that directs you to Facebook. So, at that point, or your website, so at that point, what's the difference? But actually the face of Instagram and the way that it's laid out and how you can use it, I believe it's the most powerful.
And that platform is better, for the retailer, or for the consumer, pardon me, the interface or the platform is better on Instagram. And so, are you pushing your retailers to spend more time and energy,
No.
on their Instagram accounts?
Not necessarily. I think, it's more about keeping up with information, every day, obviously, but I wouldn't say that we need to get into overkill, so some clients are like, well, I only think I need to do this once a week. And I'm thinking, well, imagine, this is interesting. I don't know if it was you or if it was one of, our other colleagues. Imagine if you get 1,000 emails in a month, right? So if you only send one a week as a retailer, then why would anyone ever open it? Because it's just like delete, 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 delete in the morning, right? Or, for those people who like to have inboxes with 12,000 unread messages, you just kind of leave it there. So I feel the same way in regards to socializing online, because what's really interesting to me, because I'm not really a socializer online, is that is exactly what you're doing, right? So the socializing online is very necessary. So where we used to live in the world of just posting photos and they were static, now those stories, I believe, are really, really, really powerful.
And they're coming to life now.
Yeah, because it's in real time and, people are talking and, you can get an idea of what the vibe is and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. And so, fast forward through this quarter, let's get through this quarter. What do you think is going to be your clients or the independent retailers' greatest challenge to overcome or greatest opportunity to address in 2020?
That's the $1 million question, Dan.
All right. This is why you get paid the big bucks. What three things should that independent retailer be focused on in Q1 of 2020?
Inventory.
Mm-hmm.
The faster they get out of the previous season's inventory and get in the new at the top of the season, aka mid-January, end of January, the better. You want to stay ahead of it. I think that going back to the experience, once you have your inventory and all of that sort of laid out and, it's coming, all of that kind of stuff, I think the experience, whether it's events, whether it's lookbooks, whether it's trunk shows,
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I think that the other opportunity,
Okay, so just a minute. So to get out of inventory before the top of the season. So the top of the season, the top of the spring season, you feel like is going to be in that end of January. Inventory is going to start landing in our stores.
Yes.
When do I need to start getting out of inventory?
Day after Christmas.
The day after. Boxing Day in Canada. What's it called in LA? The day after Christmas.
I don't know if they have a word for it. I like Boxing Day.
It's Boxing Day here in Canada.
Right. What I hear from a lot of my stores, it's the day of returns. And
right.
I'm like, the net returns are really not nearly as significant as actually
sales.
The net sale, the gross sales after, you basically, announce that end of season sale. They've got money,
right.
They're ready to go.
Right. And so for this retailer that, gets to Boxing Day or the day after Christmas and they say, okay, I've got to start getting out of inventory. How do they do that? They're not really throwing a lookbook together or a post-Christmas party, are they?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, a post-Christmas party might actually be a great idea.
Yeah, but that's only because you and I like parties so much. But for the retailer, haven't they just come off of a season of throwing events and parties and hosting, trying to get their holiday in, trying to get that fourth quarter in? Are they tired? Have they had enough?
They're tired.
Yeah.
They're exhausted, yes. So what basically I'm coaching people to do now, so here's the deal. In my professional experience, playing offense is key.
Mm.
And so a lot of times our retailers play defense because we have to react quickly to something that may or may not be in our favor.
Right.
Sometimes it is an opportunity. Sometimes it is potentially like, I can't curse. Oh, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do with all these, faux fur jackets that are hanging here on this rack. So,
do they pack them up and put them away and bring them out next winter?
Please don't say that out loud.
It's a slash and burn kind of idea. I mean, get as much cash
Yes.
out of that inventory as you can right now, because there
Yes.
won't be
And
demand for that old inventory a year from now.
Right. And if along the way, so think about it right now, basically, most of our clients can see what's sitting there that's going to wind up going to end of season. So if they're keeping up with that now and taking the maintenance markdown, essentially that end of season sale, can really, the markdown, the higher markdown can hopefully be mitigated by keeping up with the markdowns along the way.
So what's a maintenance markdown? Give me an example of a maintenance markdown.
So if you've got merchandise that you've received, depending on, what type of women's store you are.
So let's just say I'm Ladies Contemporary.
Right. 60 days.
60
right?
days, I should be taking a maintenance markdown.
Yes.
Is that 5%?
No, that's at least 30%.
30.
In some cases, I suggest pricing to sell, because if along the way it fit funky, the vendor wouldn't work with you, the color was weird, you can also sort of see the major misses, where it's not a onesie or a twosie left, but a full size run, you can see that that's not going to really move within the first 30 days of actually owning it on your floor.
Right.
So if you're keeping up with those maintenance markdowns on the merchandise as it arrives every 60 days in hopes to essentially, reduce the markdown, the huge hit that you take, starting December 26th. Right. That's the goal. So right now we've got that opportunity because it's the holidays. Everybody's throwing parties here in, the U.S. We've got, Thanksgiving on, the 28th, I think. Yeah. Late this year. Which is also making November very interesting and how to really kind of put together the plan for the holidays, because we only have 3 weeks in between the Thanksgiving holiday up until Christmas, right, which is a very short period of time. So right now, like, churn and burn. If we've got to do something about things that have poor sell-throughs, let's make it happen as soon as possible. So when, the holidays hit, it's not dragging us down, because really it just drags us down, right? It goes back to the experience. Our customers don't want to see the same stuff every 60 days in our store.
Right.
They just don't.
Right. And
they
so are you finding that because, Thanksgiving is so late in November this year, that retailers are kind of stutter stepping through November? I mean, they're coming off of October, which is probably their worst cash flow month,
Yep.
in this half of the year for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of 50-50. The retailers that don't give, and forgive me to all my beautiful clients out there for saying this, but the retailers that count on Black Friday and basically the last 10 days of the month every single year are the retailers that are struggling right now,
right,
in the first, 13 days, 12 days of the month. For the ones that are really playing offense and know that there's obviously a big push at the end of the month, right? Those are the ones that are actually coming out ahead, which in turn could make the actual season, if you combine, the last 2 months of the year together, right, it could be much greater. Is it better for a retailer to combine months, or should they be looking at, November 1st to November 30th? Do not ever combine them, ever, ever, ever. In this particular case, I am finding that I am doing that and showing both scenarios, because a lot of my clients, actually 35 to 45% of their business historically, and I'm not a last year versus this year type of gal, but historically, just in pattern, right? The last 10 days of the business of the month, so the 20th to the 30th of November, makes up 35 to 45% of their sales for the entire month. Right, so but that's not far off the metro. I mean, the last 10 days of the month is really 33%.
So it's not super heavily weighted, but I mean, I get that it's weighted that way.
Yeah. So if you think about it, right, we only have 2 days, the 29th and 30th of November.
Right.
So the pattern of shopping, right, the people's shopping pattern, they do actually hit the stores that week right after Thanksgiving, and then the week after that is when there's a lull, and then there's another huge push. So
shouldn't we be looking at November like it has 40 days or 37 days for a retailer, and ignoring the fact that it's the 30th of the month?
Exactly.
Okay, but so then doesn't that mean that I should be able to combine, part of that season that is November-ish, November to December kind of thing?
Yes. This year, 2019, we are doing that.
We're being forced to because of whoever created the calendar.
Yep.
All right.
And the goal is really if you can trend, high in the first 3 weeks of the month. I mean, it's, this November 2019, it's smooth sailing. It really could be smooth sailing for them. So that end of season sale that essentially is going to set them up with cash for 2020, right?
Right.
And, success to basically hit the ground running for the new season. Essentially, they could be ahead of the game. Because that cash at the end of the year, most people go and, pay off credit cards and things like that because, they want to, start from zero, but we need to save it.
Gotcha.
Because of first quarter.
Okay, so just a minute. I want to make sure that we sort of reiterate that. We're going to put a bunch of cash in the bank in the last 5 weeks of the year. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying don't go pay back all of your debt. Hold on to some of that cash so that you can fund, the next season, so that you can hit the ground running. If you go pay back all of your debt, your credit card and otherwise, you're as in tight a cash position then as you are coming into November.
110%.
Meaning you're no healthier. Okay, so let's just give me one tactic or strategy that a retailer can take or use today in their store to generate cash right now. What should they do?
What should they do? So what they need to do is essentially assess all of their inventory that's 60 days or older, and they need to create a maintenance markdown strategy. If there's a specific vendor that's, standing out, if there's a specific class that's standing out, they can get creative and do promos, on the class level, on the vendor level, or they could just simply announce, a holiday preview sale. But I think really focusing on that inventory that is essentially, going to be in the end of season sale, because they've still been receiving new goods. New goods drive sales, right?
Right.
So they really need to get on top of all of that to make sure that their stores are beautiful for the holidays.
Do you believe that two things drive sales? Markdowns? I mean, is there a salient customer out there? Is there that customer out there that's looking for a deal right now and is going to come and drop dollars, as well as the customer that's looking at new goods?
I think the customers that are looking for deals are waiting.
They're waiting.
I do think that they're waiting for the big deals. Not to say that that sometimes there isn't crossover between a full price customer and a sale customer. But what I find in most women's stores is that, the sales stuff doesn't necessarily make them excited. You look at a 30% off rack, a 50% off rack, and they're like, I've already seen this, or, I would have bought that at full price almost if they really actually liked it. So, or wanted it. So the goal really has to be along the way. That's why the along the way, if they haven't done it along the way up until now, they've got a lot of work to do to basically prepare and try and actually sell that merchandise before Black Friday hits.
Okay. Good advice. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk about you. If you could meet anybody in the world of retail, Who do you want to meet? Who haven't you met that you want to have a coffee or a glass of pink wine with?
Oh, I love the pink wine. Okay, so I thought about this, and I would actually love to meet Jeff Bezos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because he's first on my list, because what's fascinating to me about big retail, because I don't live in that world,
Right,
is how can you build a company that is, and this individual is a billionaire when the company essentially doesn't profit. It's not profitable. And so along the way, what happens to even the retailers and, or the wholesalers, the vendors that actually sell on Amazon, they get undercut because of whatever deals that they have to work out with Amazon and the fees and all of those things. But nobody really, at the end of the day, is winning.
and so you want to have that glass of wine with him and say, what's the methodology?
Like, how does this make sense? So, I mean, I know it makes sense for him. I understand that it makes sense. We know of clients and things like that have actually, had very large successes on Amazon, in the way beginning of Amazon and all
Right.
of those types of things. So, I get that there are huge, huge, huge successes for specific people, but fundamentally the company doesn't make any money. Now, is that on purpose, to avoid, paying Uncle Sam, or, really, like, what is his why?
Right. What is his why?
What is his why other than making it very easy? Because, I mean, listen, I bought groceries yesterday on Amazon, so I understand.
Right.
The ease of it. I mean, it just makes it easier for everyone. I think the other person that I would want to meet, and again, I mean, it's big retail, but Steve Jobs, and the reason why with Steve Jobs is he was so innovative and really developed that customer experience that is unlike any other.
I think the example with Jobs or even today, their intention was never to actually, their why was never to sell anything. Sales became a consequence of the experience that they created.
Yeah.
And I think if our retailers, would take a step back and stop focusing so much energy on sales and refocus their energy on experience, sales would follow them. Sales would become consequential instead of this thing that stresses us out every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you sort of lay the foundation of your business and really make it about other things other than sales, the sales actually, in my opinion, will come.
Right.
Because it's genuine. It's really, you're coming from a place of not panic. I mean, how many times do you hear, "Oh, I just need more traffic"? I had my meeting started yesterday at 6. I wasn't done till 6 a.m. till 5. And I was pretty much on the phone all day. And every single person I was on the phone with yesterday said, traffic is really low. I said, well, how would you know that? Well, I can just tell. I said, well, are you tracking it?
Right.
No. And I said, well, then the discussion's off the table. Because we
Right.
can't, we don't even know, we don't know.
There's no truth to my traffic is down unless you're counting it.
Right. So, did you have this, one of the stores actually, this is a really cool idea actually, they had a wreath making party. So, like a garden store or something brought in like all the, pine stuff and ribbons and all that kind of stuff. And they laid out a huge table in the middle of the store, and I'm like, you guys, like that right there is so cool. And you will reap the benefits of that, whether it's 5 days from now or in 2 weeks from now, but that makes people excited, not your panic mode
Right.
of, I just need more sales.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Margo, this has been a great conversation. Give us one last hurrah, one last word of wisdom or words of wisdom for those retailers that are listening to us today. Give us one thing that they need to do between now and what you called the day after Christmas. I call Boxing Day. What's something they've got to do?
Well, Dan, I'm going to use that, by the way. Just hard work pays off.
Hard work pays off.
That hard work, listen, that was one of the biggest things that I didn't realize when I got into the world of retail when I was 23 years old. It's not easy, but if you're diligent and you're smart and you ask questions and you talk to people and, have coaches and, really are accepting of advice and,
right.
just really in it for all the right reasons, it'll happen for you. And we're not curing cancer, so nothing really terrible could really go wrong. We can always, make lemonade out of rotten lemons.
Right.
So it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It really is.
Good answer. Okay, so if somebody does have questions, if somebody wants to hear more from Margo, how do they find you?
Well, I wish I could say I'd be on a beach drinking a lot of pink wine, but you can check out my website, theprojectretail.com. We're also on Instagram, but I am not very good at socializing on Instagram. You can email me. You can call me.
Awesome. All right, Margo, thank you so much. So Margo Kopman with The Project Retail, theprojectretail.com. Super awesome conversation, Margo. Thank you so much.
Hope I didn't disappoint all your listeners. Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.